that really on a lot of different issues, and I think this one's no different. Let's take a look at it. Let's put the brakes on, and we really need to see what kind of what the numbers look like, what the numbers are in many different categories. I think before we necessarily jump in.
The numbers are huge.
And I'm not saying no to legalization. I've been on the fence on it, but we need to make sure we do due diligence.
Yeah.
And the only way to really get, I think, a true adequate picture over a given period of time is to just wait a few years. And I think we need to make sure we. I mean that's the right way to do it. I think that's the best way to do it. To make sure we're doing the right thing.
From what I was talking to them, you know, because it was a back and forth thing. It's like they went so fast once it was legalized, even for medicinal, because these dispensaries start popping up. They already are, so it's already there. They said by the time they figured it out and started putting policies in place, regulations in place, it was too late. It was 10 years into it already before they could get that going. That's why they're warning us now, do it now. So that way before they start, because it's already here, right? Medicinal. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're saying. This, you know, it's coming around. You know, they went, I forgot the statistics, but the police force in Denver it grew so large once it was legalized. So you got that aspect too. Not so much crime, but it's all these other things. The regulation, the illegal dealings, because they still have that going on. Warehouses will be legal growing. So.
Those are all the, they said, different angles we need to look at. And others have done it, and I think before we just jump in, let's take a look at it. Let's dissect it. And,
yeah, that's pretty much what they're saying. Look at it and do it now.
Absolutely. Before we, I think before we go in and just say, let's pass it along. Well, let's take a look. This is one of those. I don't think there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. You know, on this one once we do it. So.
You gonna answer questions about Plainfield? What about transit?
Well, that's, you know, we're waiting on that again.
Yeah.
So the update on that.
South?
So right now we're waiting for SEAT to give us an answer on the ability to connect those, right? From the north to the south. We've been staying on top of it in our power, right? Where there's only so much we can do. But the last meeting we had, we were told that they would make a decision at the next SEAT meeting, and at the next SEAT meeting, what they decided that they wanted to do was another survey. So we're waiting on that to occur so that we can then get a decision from them. I think the last that I was told by Senator Summers was that they were pretty confident that they were going to agree to work with us, but they just want to make sure that they're not eliminating a route that was needed, or you know, that they're moving the the correct routes around.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just trying to make sure that they do it in the best interest of the people from the south part.
Okay.
Which I think is Jewett City.
Jewett City, yeah.
Right.
Jewett City.
Jewett
So
City.
they're trying to kind of make that happen. But it is in play. I mean, I know it's gone on for what seems eternity. At least since I've been a legislator, it's been a talking issue. But
it's been years.
I mean, we thought it was going to be all said and done last fall. We were told by DOT that we were ready to go and it would be up and running in a month. And then, you know, I announced that, and then we're still sitting here over a year later. So I'm sorry that that's happened, but I'm doing all that I can do. There's no magic wand.
You've been working on it for years, very hard, and you and Heather and the town. My position is, I think bus service needs to happen for Plainfield. Let's try it. The ultimate plan, once there's a plan on the table, I think the final decision maker on that should be the town. On the local level, you guys should be able to finally say yay or nay. That to me, that's where it belongs.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it'll go into the budget this year.
For me, the two critical points I'm looking at for this to get this off the ground. Number one, as Ann said, the north and the south, those lines have to hook up, have to do a transfer at some point, at some place. That's not a new novel idea. It kind of brings me back to my childhood. I did my first 2 years of high at St. Bernard's, came from Preston, so we went to NFA. switched buses than to go to St. Bernard's. They say, oh, you gotta walk to NFA in order to catch the bus to St. Bernard's. There was a transfer that happened there. So that, and then the other point that Ann mentioned is particularly a concern of mine is the possibility of eliminating routes or stops in the south, particularly in some of the towns there. If they're going to, we want to make sure there's there's a lack of demand, a lack of ridership, that they're going to any stops that they propose to abolish. They're going to ride the route to collect the data. Again, being a data guy, I want to see that. I want to make sure people aren't getting disenfranchised somewhere else. It's fair to everybody. So I requested to see that report, those numbers. I have not seen it as of yet. So those are the two, to me, the two key components that have to happen. I want to see that data, and they have to, those two routes have to link up, the north and the south, in order to make this thing successful, at least on the as far as to launch, you know. And but ultimately, the plan, once there's a plan put together, the final decision makers on that should be the people and the officials on the town level. That's where it belongs. That's where it's going to be. That's where it belongs.
Yeah. So. Now, my other concern with transportation then is the suggesting transferring in big wide parking lot. I brought this up once before at one of your meetings. That bridge across 395 does not have sidewalk under it. If we're going to be dropping people and picking people up at Big Y, then we're going to be getting more truck traffic in here. I know it's going to happen. It's going to be unsafe going under that bridge. So I don't know if the state can help there, or
well, I think that's kind of in the...
It's in the future, but...
Yeah, that's just in the minutia of the details. I think that's easily switched up. I think like maybe CVS or McDonald's.
Yeah, on this side, yeah. I was just going to say...
I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's,
good.
you know, here or there, and I don't think it's that big of a deal, but that has come up, and I think you did bring it up.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. You're going to come off the highway, you're going to go right or left,
Right.
so...
I noticed it first with this guy in a motorized cart.
Riding over there.
With his cart of bottles and cans. He used to bring them to Better Value.
Yeah.
Better Value closed. Now he's scooting through there, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
I really noticed there's no sidewalk there
Yeah,
when he's out in the road. So.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't think switching that up is going to be, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
So then we can talk about the sidewalk
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah.
It's going to be needed there, I think.
Yeah.
Under that bridge.
Yeah, I'm surprised you guys don't have it.
They say there's no room. There's 5 lanes under there.
Wow.
Because you get 3 coming into town, because you get 1 onto the, and then you get 2 going that way. You get 5 lanes.
Yeah.
I don't know, this seems like there's Jersey barriers. If they were moved back, there might be, I don't know. Maybe study could be taken or something, and see.
Yeah, so let's get that
Good concern.
transportation go. No, it's a good concern. I mean, I think that resolving it by going on the other side is easy enough, but I think that,
For
like
the
you
bus,
said,
right,
maybe
yeah.
for other people.
Yeah, future.
But, you know, as I'm sure Ann has told you, I mean, some of the business bills, laws that passed this session, I think are a disaster for businesses. It's a disaster for our state, and it's everything from the minimum wage, you know, increasing that. I've said time and time again, if you look at the statistics, every time minimum wage goes up, youth unemployment, and specifically minority youth unemployment, goes up with it. You know, where you, one of the ways you learn, you pick up skills. The minimum wage is not designed for your seasoned worker. It's that kid in high school that wants to learn a trade, might be interested in tiling, in flooring, in rehabbing, may have modernizing a house. They have that kind of desire. So a kid from Plainfield, who are they going to talk to? All right, you in June. He might come to you or her and say, you know, I really want to learn that. I'm really interested. And you may say, you know what, for $8, I'll give you $8 an hour, or $10 an hour to carry the supplies and help me out. So when I'm on the floor, when I'm in the middle of what I'm doing, I can rely on you to go get what I need to get, so I don't have to keep breaking my concentration. In turn, that kid's seeing the trade. They get to see exactly what you're doing. It's either going to codify their desire to get into that business, or they're going to say, you know what, I'd rather do something else. But they're getting that experience and getting to see how you interact with customers, how you treat people, a contract, how contracts work, and that's the trade-off. It's not your season. It's not for your seasoned worker. You may be willing to do that for $8-10 an hour. I can't. A lot of businesses aren't, particularly small businesses, aren't going to be able to do that for $15 an hour with the average young person. So those are the people that get hurt the very most. And then you have this unfortunate group of young people who are not sure what they want to do in life because they haven't been exposed to what they think they might want to do. And that's another just another attack on businesses, particularly small businesses. The restaurant industry, we had quite a bit of conversation on that. An absolute disaster. It's been where if somebody's in a service position, if you're a waiter or bartender, while you're doing that work, you're on one pay scale. But then if you're going to fill some ketchup bottles or salt and pepper shakers, cut a lemon, clean a glass, now that's going to be considered almost like non-service, where it's a different pay scale. I mean, can you imagine the burden that's putting on that industry?
Yeah.
Can you, how to track that? How would you track that? I can't imagine it. I mean, think
You'd
about.
have to do an average, I guess.
Well,
Figure in a course of a day and.
They talked about punching, like, you know, when you go in your, when I was a server, you'd have to clock in, but they talked about having you punch out and then punch in to do the other work, no matter how quickly or long it took, and then punching back in.
So that's just an example. Think about what that does.
Yeah.
All these different punch clocks, and you have to have somebody properly report it.
Yeah.
If you don't, God help you. I mean, now you got the consumer protection, you got labor department, you got this alphabet soup of agencies that will come down so hard on you, and they want to fine you, and they this big evil entity. You know, it just shows you this is just how ridiculous government is getting, particularly in our state. So this is one area, you know, we've our caucus has met on it and pointed it out from the beginning, the unintended consequences. After the bill was signed, I think the governor realized, I think the Republicans were right. And so we're going in next week. Hopefully we can get this thing rectified, at least make it less bad, less burdensome than it currently is. So that's that's one example of this over-regulatory state we're in, and how they just keep pushing more and more bills through and passing these laws, not even fully thinking it through. What's the unintended consequences? And a bill is more than just a title. When you start reading it, it can be a whole different animal. So, and you know, Anne pointed out to me day one. Don't read just the title of the bill. It's always what's inside it, because a title can look very, very nice, and then it can get very, very ugly the more you read it. So there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I think the paid family leave, that's broke before it starts. The 0.5% of your payroll is going to be deducted for this insurance, if you call it that, this paid family leave. So in other words, somebody making $50,000 a year, they're going to pay $250 into it. If you take the benefit every year, so you get a payout of $600. That's over $7,000. $250 in, $7,000 out. It's broke before it starts.
It's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. So I think you'll see that 0.5%. That's just going to be another tax that's going to keep rising and rising and rising. It can't work. It's broke before we start. They're talking about putting a commission together of 15 people that's going to analyze this and work on this and get it ready to launch. And just think of the expense, the back of the house expense that comes along with this. You know, it's
not voluntary, it's mandatory.
Okay.
But getting back to the minimum wage, I just wanted to mention, so there was a a couple of other groups of people that are really hurt by the minimum wage, and that's the elderly and the disabled. Those two groups are in particularly hurt. When you look at the elderly, they're all on fixed incomes, right? So an elderly person might go out to lunch every other Friday into a restaurant with their husband or their wife or whatever. Once the minimum wage goes up, prices are going to go up, but their pay is going to stay the same. And they won't be going out every other week. Maybe they'll go out once a month. Maybe they won't go out at all because everything around them is going to go up. The cost of everything is going to go up. So I would say that those and the young individuals and the disabled, those that are, seeking out those jobs that are their minimum, are all those jobs aren't going to be there for them. They're going to disappear, and the elderly aren't going to be able to afford to do the things that they were doing, who were already on a fixed income. Many of them are already stretched. So I think that it's really going to devastate in a much bigger way just the general public. And then the Family Medical Leave Act I mentioned that's mandatory. Everybody, you have to pay whether you want to or not, and contribute whether you want to or not. And what's going to happen with that as well is I think not only are the cost to you going to go up, but I think at some point you'll see some kind of a cost to the employer. That's my prediction, because out of the gate it's unsustainable. So.
And, I met with one business in my district too, that's in the fabrication business, and they have customers from all around the country, and they have about a dozen employees, and what they pride themselves on is a quick turnaround. Within 48 hours, they can get it turned around, sent out to the West Coast, for example, to California, and they've kept a lot of the same customers throughout the years because of that promise and that commitment. Now with this paid family leave, you have people who have very specialized positions, they have very specialized skills within the fabrication industry. Now, if one of these people decide to go out and exercise this insurance, they just can't replace that person. There isn't somebody right around the corner that can just assume that position and do those skills. So what's going to happen? Everything's going to start getting backlogged. So their commitment to getting stuff turned around very, very quickly could be compromised. So they got to make a decision. Do they change their business model, or do they leave the state? And there's states that do not have this. Many do not. There's that are business friendly, which is job friendly. So if they have to leave the state, guess what's going to happen to those jobs? They're going to be lost. All those people that utilize goods and services in the community, that eat lunch at a local restaurant, that buy clothes, that buy clothes for their kids. All that's going to be that is going to be gone because that business will leave. And you take that and multiply that across hundreds and hundreds of businesses that are now in jeopardy because particularly the minimum wage and the paid family leave. And I feel I think Anne shares a common view on this. The best minimum wage to me is dictated by the private sector, where if you have a more than one business trying to get market share in the same industry, what happens? If you want to get the best possible employees, wages go up, benefits go up, to try to have those carrots to try to attract people to your business. And if you're the only game in town that's in that industry, you essentially have the pick of the litter, and they'll essentially take what you pay them. So minimum wage works in the free enterprise system. The best minimum wage is in the free enterprise system itself. And that's what I'm a very strong supporter of. And so every time the minimum wage goes up, it really, to me, it actually, I think, dwarfs progress and dwarfs raises in standard of living for people. And that's been shown.
It made me think about the elderly with the minimum wage, even if they're not on a fixed income, but they're, moderate income, and they're relying on minimum wage employees to come in, do services, clean and whatnot for them. Mm-hmm. Even that's going to be affected. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of the elderly.
You talk about this attack on the elderly. Look at the pre-prepared foods, the prepared meals. Mm-hmm. That's the people that need it the very most, that need that break, are elderly who have paid their dues, kept this country running for generations. There's a gentleman I just met this weekend, Art, you met him with me, on June, 98-year-old guy, can you believe that? A survivor of World War II, and he's a guy that may rely on that pre-prepared meal, where he doesn't need, he can't necessarily cook every day, cook 3 meals a day, but he knows if he goes down to the local Big Y, there's the pre-prepared meals.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna get taxed more for all those years of service. You know, and that's the single mother of 4 kids that's working 3 jobs just to make ends meet is getting a tax increase through pre-prepared meals. And to me, absolutely, totally, 100% unacceptable. Those are the people that need it the very most, and yet they're the ones that get the most. And what makes me really angry when we pointed out as a caucus, like, hey, this is wrong. This is having a real bad effect. The Senate president said, you know what? We'll let the Department of Revenue try to fix it. Try almost like button our legislative responsibilities to the executive branch of government. To me, that should be our role of legislators to step up and say, no, this is wrong, and we're going to fix it. Because if the Department of Revenue can interpret it one way today, they can change it tomorrow, and then go back and just back and forth. We need to make sure we do our job as legislators. We got to stop bunting as a legislature, and start getting in and getting tough and making sure we're more business friendly again, and protecting those who need it the very most, particularly our elderly, our single mothers, the people who these taxes, this excess burden. These are the people who need that break.
And then they get to pay 10 cents for their bag they're putting it in. Just saying. And then next year they won't get a bag to put it in. And they'll be illegal.
Or you
Well.
can shop out of state, which is inconvenient too, you know, like.
I had dinner on Rhode Island a couple weeks ago, and somebody said, would you like a bag? I was, believe it or not, I hadn't finished my meal. That was like one of the first times in history. But they said, do you want a bag? I said, is there a charge?
They must have looked.
She looked at me like I had 3 heads. Yeah, she thought it was from Mars. And,
I know,
and it's not just these. And again, this is another example.
it's more
This thing,
stress.
it's more stress. It's not just the 10 cents too. Think about
It's the stress.
the 10 cents. Now they call it a fee, right? Which is that's a fancy
Chocolate.
word in Harvard. Ian told me when I first got there. That's another fancy word for a tax, right? But because they call it a fee, it's going on a separate schedule. So think about the infrastructure. Think about you got to hire somebody or designate an employee that has to keep track of that. How many bags are getting sold on what days, and carrying that schedule. That costs money, right? And guess what they're going to do for that excess charge? They're going to pass that on to the price of food and services that a supermarket or a mall or
Who thinks these things up? That's what I was gonna ask you. Who's deciding all of these bills that you read, and what do they do? Get together in a room and, there's no common sense in this. I don't know where it's coming from. Who's coming up with these?
I don't know if it's in the water. I had a colleague told me, bring your own water, get a bottle
To
from
Hartford?
bottle it from the 45th, and bottle it from Eastern Connecticut. You'd be better off.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Really, it is scary. A lot of these proposals that you see coming out. They call us the land of steady habits. I'm starting to understand that. There was a business association I met with about a month ago, and we were talking about, again, what me and Ann discussed with you guys, like paid family leave and the minimum wage. And one guy said, what's forcing him to do is to hire subcontractor work, particularly from subcontractors outside the state, because it's less expensive, right? And I think the difference, the people who've been there in charge for the last 30 years, me and Ann and a lot of our colleagues in our caucus would say, obviously these are some bad ideas. Let's either reform them or get rid of them. The people who've been in charge for the last 30 years up there are saying, let's pass another law. Let's get some regulations in place in the alphabet soup of agencies to make sure to punish this guy if he does that kind of to hire subcontractors. let's put an extra burden on them. That's the type of thinking that,
Control.
right.
It's a control thing. It seems like that's, the government's trying to control everything.
right. Instead of them saying it's not working,
Yeah.
let's get rid of it. They're saying, let's add more
This
regulations.
punch-
And
Yeah, make it worse.
right.
Yeah.
Where me and Ann, we say, let's get rid of the damn thing.
Right, just start over.
Right. Let's look at
Find a
some.
better way.
Exactly. Some of these states that are successful, where business is flourishing. What are they doing? What's the answer? Is it more taxes and more regulations? I don't think so. And,
So now you want my ultimate question, because you mentioned it before with the resolution. I know Killingly passed the resolution too. What are your thoughts on the tolls?
Well, I don't support tolls.
Okay.
It's another tax on the people in Connecticut.
Stress, more stress.
So we're gonna, people are already leaving. We're just adding more cost to the people here in Connecticut. And, truth be told, only 25% of the drivers on the roads are from out of state. So a lot of people think, well, let's get those people that come from out of state, but for every 75 cents we spend, we're gonna get a return of 25. So it's, the payout doesn't make any sense.
Another one.
And once they're in place, they're never going away, excuse me.
yeah, and that's so true. And I echo that. I'm obviously a no one tolls, not one toll. When you allow one to come in, it's Pandora's box. So I think if we remember, I remember I was asked by a member of the media, local media, in the springtime. Well, there's no tolls being proposed on 395, and so you're going to support tolls? And I said absolutely not, because they can change that like that. And here we are. What are they talking about? A toll on 395 over the Moose River. What's right where we're sitting. So it's absolutely not. There's the STF, Special Transportation Fund, where this money would go. The Democrat majority, they diverted $150 million out of that fund in this budget. That fund that's supposed to take care of our bridges, our state roads, our infrastructure. If it's such a priority and it's so crucial, why are you diverting it somewhere else? Why are you raiding it? So just think, if there is more revenue that now comes into that from on the backs of the taxpayers and our motorists here in the state, think about what they would do. Are they going to change their ways? I think we've learned from the state income tax, our lottery, sales tax, corporate tax, the tax when you die, the tax when you live, the tax when you breathe. It's they haven't devoted the money where it's supposed to go, and it's just hurting more and more people. And again, the states that have cut taxes, eliminated taxes, reduced taxes, there's been a flourish of business. It's been flourishing, and cutting regulations with it. That's what we need to try to do. Governor Malloy, prior to I think it was a couple of years back, Amazon, they were looking for their big second headquarters. Could you think of a better place than right here in eastern Connecticut, halfway between Boston and New York, the wealthiest quarter in the country?
Right on 395.
Responsible for 60,000 new jobs in whatever market they were going to go in. We weren't even on the radar. And isn't it coincidence, right, at that same time, but Governor Malloy was talking about then, and now Governor Lamont's bringing it back up, is a tax on trucks, tolling trucks. And I'm quite certain Amazon and their headquarters, they have a truck or two, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, I think a good example is in Rhode Island. Rhode Island put a toll gantry for trucks on 95. The last exit before that toll is on 165 right near Beach Pond. So the trucks are getting off there, and they're cutting through the village of Voluntown, where you have the school, and you have the village where a lot of the houses are very close to the road, and they've already seen a problem in Voluntown, in my district, because of those trucks getting up from Rhode Island and cutting through Voluntown to pick up 395. There's already been greater deterioration of the roads, higher rates of speed, safety issues for the children. Just think what's gonna happen if they put more tolls in, if they put tolls all around our state. The pressure on our secondary roads and we think we have a transportation problem now. Think about what's gonna look like, our infrastructure is gonna look like with the tolls where people are getting off the highway to
Divert.
exactly.
Now, do you know if any other towns in your district have done a resolution opposing it?
Sterling has.
Okay.
Sterling's on board, and you guys are working on it, right?
We already did.
I have not talked to one person yet that has come up to me in any of my towns. All the office hours, the coffee socials, I feel like I'm pretty present in my, accessible in my towns. I have not talked to one yet that said, oh, please vote for tolls. We want tolls so desperately. That's the answer to our problems. Not one.
Yeah.
Not one person, but I've heard from quite a few that said, you better not vote for tolls. And people are quite angry. I think they see what this is. This is just, again, the government putting blame and responsibility, pointing fingers somewhere else, and saying, we've misused your money, we've misappropriated it, we sent it to places it shouldn't have gone. Where this budget, they're putting a tennis court in one town, funding for an art festival in another. Is that the role of government? Is that where it's supposed to go? We're gonna divert money out of the STF, out of the Special Transportation Fund, to fund Christmas tree projects?
It was like funding the crumbling foundations. We're all paying
Well, we're
that
doing
tax.
Yeah, through the insurance, that was before I got there, I know you had said that this was just the tip, it was just the tip of the iceberg. It didn't solve the problem. And it was, again, trying to put the blame onto the policyholders, onto the people, and not come up with a meaningful solution. So, that's, I mean, look at a vehicle trade-in. You're gonna get taxed, you're gonna trade in your vehicle, you wanna upgrade, it's gonna go to $100 now. $100 for a trade, can you believe that?
Last time I got $250 for my trade.
Well, now it'd be
Now I
$150.
get 50.
Yeah. It's,
And the other thing was, I had wanted to ask you, because you're on some kind of energy committee or something, about the fact that we do have a solar farm coming in down by the river off Cornell Road.
mhm.
And it's a big farm. What's the mega?
19 plus, maybe?
So it's going to be, I'm just concerned because it seems like the state is pushing these things. And are they really looking into the damage it does in the environment?
Yeah, I mean,
Have you found out anything yet, or can you look into it?
I'll be certainly happy to look
They're
more
coming
into that.
tomorrow night to the town hall for 2 hours to answer questions.
The open house
It's an
tomorrow
open
night.
house.
I know typically these issues, when their solar company comes in, they try to work out an agreement with the town where it should be. In the event that they cannot, with the town leaders and the townspeople, there's the siting council, the state siting council. That's where it would go if there's an impasse. Typically, it's resolved, but certainly if I can, anything where you need for me to look into, I'd be happy to do that. But I know these things typically get negotiated out on the town level with the companies. But I'll be more than happy to, if you need me to assist in some way, I'd be happy to look at that. And
They're saying it's going right to the siting council. We're not having a public hearing on it or anything.
yeah, and I know they try to work out the agreement, but I'll be happy to look more into that information, and we can.
Our only concern is because it's right on Quinnebog, on the hill,
The bank.
right to the Quinnebog River.
I see.
So, 19 megawatts is pretty big
Yeah,
to strip all that land as trees right on the river, so.
yeah. So we can definitely I can get some more of that information.
It's like, we're talking about, what do we have resources here that are good for the town? And we do have a couple of rivers, and there's not much to do to get to them either, right? We don't really have.
And I think if you look at even, I mean,
access.
you guys have the rivers, you have rail, the railroad that comes right into Plainfield. There's enormous opportunity.
I know.
But again, unfortunately, we're competing with 49 other states. And a lot of these different initiatives that we're talking about, there's other states willing to do. And you know, what makes me very, very angry is there's been a big boom in Massachusetts. They've made it more business friendly up there, less regulation. Particularly in Boston, you look at a lot of the innovation in that I saw when I was up there. It's unbelievable. What they don't have is manufacturing, because you've got the red zone, the blue zone, where you can't really get big trucks into there. So you got to do the manufacturing somewhere else. So they've actually said there was a Boston, Newton, Mass, New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, economic metro area, like a boom there. So think about it, it's more, to me, like, it should be the Boston, Newton, Eastern Connecticut metro area. We're roughly the same distance here that we are in New Hampshire. And you look at and we're close, we have rail, we have river, we have a lot of the natural resources. We have the two major highways that run parallel, that go to New York City, Philadelphia, the big major population hubs. Think about it, it's less expensive for them to do business in New Hampshire and ship it down than it is to actually start further south to get it out to all the rest of the points out of Eastern Connecticut. We should be that hub. And you guys get it, I get it, Ann gets it. The people of Eastern Connecticut get it, are a lot of the leaders, quite frankly, regardless of party, Republican or Democrat, both understand it. But unfortunately, we have this 10,000-foot view in Hartford that doesn't. And that's why I think that's why we're still stuck in, kind of stuck in the mud here. You know, the tires are stuck in the mud, and we have enormous potential. And for our state to be in the kind of shape we're in, you got to work very, very hard at it. And unfortunately, the Democrats have succeeded in doing that over the last 30, 40 years in our state. So. Sir, do you have any questions in the back?
Just mostly just listen along to see where the discussion went. But I guess, well, you know, put the focus on it. I think I was just asking, you know, being the reporter here. Obviously, it's, you know, a small attendance tonight. I guess first of all, we're hoping for, you know, more people to come around, and then because there's only, I guess, a handful of us here right now, what do you think are, you know, the important takeaways that, you know, people, you know, seeing this in the paper should see?
I think people clearly understand it. I think they get it, that they've been overregulated and taxed in our state for far too long. And unfortunately, this session, there's been more of that. Again, through the minimum wage and the paid family leave, it's hurting businesses. Particularly, it's an attack and assault on our small businesses, which last I saw is responsible for 70% of the jobs in this country come out of our small businesses. So this is an attack on small business and on workers in good quality jobs. And this is just another burden being put on the people. We talked about the plastic bag, the pre-prepared food tax, digital downloads that are now going to be taxed at 6.35%. The list goes on and on and on. Safety apparel. Think about that. They're gonna the sales tax exemption on safety apparel. A lot of that are first responders, particularly volunteers, and they're going to have to pay tax on that. Again, it's totally unacceptable. And who's been in Rhode Island here in the last month? Somebody crossed the border? Any of you guys cross the border? Most people go quite frequently. So I guess with that, again, that's going to be a disadvantage to the people, to our businesses right here in Eastern Connecticut, when you can easily just cross. And the people get it, and the people throughout the state get it. I talk to colleagues who are on the New York border, and of course we're close to the Massachusetts border. Other colleagues that are close to the Massachusetts border on the western part of the state. They're all saying the same thing. It's hurting our border communities, and we have border districts, and people are simply going across. And that's part of the problem. Like the small business owners, again, who they're looking for subcontractors where they can, particularly out-of-state subcontractors. You know, I remember it was a few years ago. I was in a local town, not in my district, but it was a town here in eastern Connecticut, and they were resurfacing their roads. And I noticed the trucks, they all had New Hampshire plates on it.
Yes.
You know, and I asked the guy who's there, the town official. I said, why not a Connecticut business? Don't we have Connecticut businesses that do that kind of work? And he said, yeah, but when we put out the bid, New Hampshire came in. This company came in substantially less than local businesses. You know, now it's not because our local businesses are just greedy people. All these taxes, all these regulations, all these new laws that are coming into effect. That's an assault on business. They have to pass that along in order to try to stay profitable. In New Hampshire, they don't have those regulations. They don't have those taxes and laws. So think about being able to take a crew from New Hampshire, bring them down here for a week, put them up in a hotel, 3 squares a day, paying these people, and they're still able to come in at a much lower bid and get the job done and be profitable.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you've come to town halls, but you know, the attendance varies. I'm out and about in my district every single week at several different events, so I see people. We're always answering questions. I know Brian goes as well, so we're out there. So I think sometimes at these events, unless people have a specific question and haven't been able to find us, they come. It's also the holidays, so it's hard to say, but I'm out there. I was out at 2 events today. I'll be out at 3 tomorrow, so we see people all the time. I know Art and June know that too. So we do see our constituents. So I think for the most part, probably most of their questions are answered. I held a town hall a few weeks ago in the other part of my district, and we had, I don't know, there was a packed room full of people. It was particular about the legislative process and how a bill gets put in and how you have to follow it through to the end and how it finally gets passed. So there was a lot of interest in that. I think because that's not just one question, it's more like a, if you will, an ongoing lesson. So I think that really piqued a lot of interest, but I answer a lot of questions. I'm available on Facebook. People will reach out to me there. So we're out there.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely agree with this. You know, the breadth of knowledge and the depth of questions that constituents bring to me are unbelievable. I mean, very, very thoughtful and ideas regarding legislation, where we should take our state, what's going on with our state government. People are paying attention, they're listening, and what they come back to us with, I find incredible, particularly our young people. I mean, they really get it as far as the need to make sure the education curriculums and that those fit the jobs of the future, that the workforce manufacturing pipelines, that we get more of that and get more of that in place. So really the jobs, the education and the training meets the job market, particularly the future. And that's certainly an issue a lot of the young people have brought to my attention, and the type of issues they study and that they're following, particularly our teenage population, our young people. It's incredible, you know. And that was with the wisdom of our seniors. It's really great to see those 2 communities specifically, and you know, as we visit the different senior centers and the high schools, and at times even bringing them together is it's been a great opportunity certainly for me as a legislator to see and hear that, and the people just sharing, being able to just very observant with their communities, and they get it. They know what's happening on the state level. They don't like it, and they feel like they've been misused for far too long now, and it's it's disappointing. It's difficult when we're in the minority and we're trying to bring that message to Hartford. And again, you've just got, unfortunately, a lot of the same people who are just keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result. And, a lot of those ideas unfortunately have failed. It's obvious, and they're not willing to try something different. And that's what's been difficult, certainly over the past year. I can certainly think our caucus gets it, and that's, I'm talking people from all four corners of the state, but unfortunately there's the majority party, the people who've been there. It's like they just want to keep trying a certain agenda, the agenda of tax and spend, and maybe if we just impose a couple more taxes, that'll be the answer to all our problems. That's been, to me, their thought process, and if taxes or regulations were the solution, I don't think we'd be having our problems right now.
How large is the Republican caucus?
We have, at the moment, 60, and I'm hoping that's going to grow to 61.
Is 60 even?
60 even.
And most of them are from other side of the state, or
God, they're pretty much all
pretty
over.
all over?
Good mix, yeah.
Yeah.
Good mix. Oh, good.
Which I think is good.
Well, the bigger cities have more representatives,
Right.
so, yeah, the lion's share is on the other side of the state. The rural area over on this side, we call it this side of the river, is spread out quite a bit.
Connecticut
Yeah.
River.
Yeah,
There's 12 in the Senate, right? 12? 12 in the Senate. I think we lost 6 seats in the last election. So it's 12 in the Senate, 60 in the House. House last, was it 5 or 6 before the last election? It was the closest it's been in like 40 years. And the good thing was a lot of stuff had to, was a lot more, I think, conversations that happened because you have to. You have people, some conservative Democrats and some Republicans who tend to vote with it, go both ways as well. And there's a lot more conversations that happened when the numbers were a lot more.
And I think what's excellent about our caucus too is, as you mentioned, we're very close to getting a majority last session prior to me being there. But having Republicans from the four corners of the state, that Eastern Connecticut, the Republicans that come out of the Eastern Connecticut representation carries a lot more weight because they need us in order to have a majority. So there's a lot more influence if we did have a Republican majority in the House and in the Senate. Having the Eastern Connecticut delegation would have a lot more horsepower and strength with the Republicans. Well, again, I know you guys are not afraid to speak your mind. You're never strangers, and it's always great seeing you guys. And like I said, reach out to us anytime. If you ever want the quarter tour in Hartford, let me know. We'll take you around. And you'll get both of us too. So
That would be great.
yeah, we'll love to have you guys. So anytime. I
You
know
can come up
Westminster-
anytime the session, anytime they're in session, you
Oh,
can
you
come up,
can
they have a
just walk
balcony, you
in
can
and-
watch, yeah, you can
Yes.
watch, yeah, it's pretty wild.
I've watched like recordings
Yeah.
of you and being there in Hartford or Heather. And they're very interesting. Like she brought the man from Ontario that started the hemp, or helped
Oh,
her
yeah,
with the hemp, and he moved to Connecticut. And it was fascinating to watch the meeting in session and him speaking to the, yeah.
And anytime they're in session, CTN broadcasts that live, so and you
Oh,
can even go
okay.
back and watch on demand, essentially, episodes of like older session dates too.
Well, that reminds me, that's why I think doing this, we got the idea originally thinking about, was it C-SPAN? And I used to be fascinated, just the camera and the activity that was happening,
Yeah.
and that's all it was.
Yeah.
And there was nothing, no commentary, nothing to give you any ideas. You could just observe the meeting.
Yeah, you can actually watch, yeah, CTN broadcasts the debates.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, and
It's
they
no
do a lot of
interruption.
committee stuff too, so like when they're in various committees, when the public hearings and start ramping up in February and whatnot, that stuff is televised, you can watch that stuff live as well.
So that's
Pretty
kind of
wild.
like the idea behind this was to just record what's going on in the town in the
Yeah.
public meetings as if you were there,
Right.
and that's it.
Right.
There's no-
I was gonna say, how do you feel about transparency in government?
I know, it's
Excuse
kind of ironic that he winds up getting involved.
Which I think is great, and that's, and I remember, so every meeting I've been to, Board of Finance, with Board of Education, and whatever, I always see there the camera and getting it out there to the people of Plainfield, so I think that's vitally important, and,
There were a couple on the door-to-door campaigning that asked me, what do I feel about transparency in government?
Oh, that.
I would, and I think it's, which I think is great, and guys, just keep in mind too, when, they mentioned hearings in Hofford, if there are any bills you're interested in that, either support or you think are terrible, you can absolutely come up and testify. You can give written testimony, we can also come up and testify to the committee. You can sign up, and, anybody from the public can go in there and, state their position,
Wow,
so.
it's like signing up for karaoke.
I never thought I'd be in government on a local level, and you pushed me to go to state.
No, it's
It's like,
just to speak, right? Just to.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
also,
listen,
you can't make,
just
if there's a
Right.
bill coming up in a public hearing that you're really particularly interested in one way or the other, you can submit
Oh,
testimony, you don't even have to
okay,
show up.
yes, and they would read it.
It gets put on the
It
record.
must be long sessions.